Well, as I'm going to say for the last time now, most people believe recovery means stopping the drug. Remove the substance and the problem is solved. But that isn't what actually happens. People stop using, nothing really changes underneath. The craving doesn't disappear, it goes quiet. The system doesn't heal, it pauses. The same pattern shows up at a societal level, and we spent decades trying to control drugs and ended up producing more harm, not less. So if stopping the substance doesn't fix the problem, what actually does? And that's what we've spent pretty much the majority of the book talking about. So we're on to now part 73, and this is the final part in the book. So chapter 11, conclusion, healing the self, healing the world. When I first told my story in chapters 1 and 2, I thought recovery meant the end of the road. I'd stopped the substances, the chaos had quietened, and by every official measure I was better. But what I called healing was merely a pause. The craving had gone underground. I had treated the symptoms, not the wound. The trauma beneath, the need for control, the fear of stillness remained unexamined. Only later did I realise that abstinence alone is a waiting room, not a cure. Freedom began when vigilance softened into curiosity, when the ritual of avoidance became the ritual of return. That process traced through sections 54 to 57 turned repetition into rhythm and discipline into choice. Addiction, it turns out, is not the opposite of control, but its caricature. Our civilization mirrors that same misunderstanding. The UK, like much of the industrial world, has spent a century policing itself into dependence, a collective addict chasing the next dose of punishment. We call it law, policy, order. In truth, as shown in sections 47 and 49, it is fear dressed as reason. We built asylums to contain distress and prisons to contain difference. We medicalised rebellion and moralised chemistry. Result, visible across sections 61 and 72, is a machinery of harm that produces precisely what it claims to prevent: addiction, violence, alienation. We have confused stability with sedation. The nation, like the patient, is medicated but not healed. The numbers confirm what intuition really knows. David Nutt demonstrated that alcohol and tobacco cause far more social, physical harm than most banned drugs combined. Transform mapped the same truth in policy language. Prohibition sustains crime, not safety. Yet the myth persists because it feels familiar. Prohibition is the hangover we refuse to cure. It offers the illusion of control to a culture terrified of uncertainty. And so, inevitably, the pub test. A person at the bar shakes their head. Surely this can't be done. We are where we are. They point to the Friday night carnage on the high street, the brawls and vomit, the queue for A&E, and conclude that legislation would make it worse. But what they are describing is Prohibition's legacy, a society that separates intoxication from education. We tolerate the bottle because it's taxed, and we condemn the pill because it is not. Both are routes to altered states. Only one is wrapped in nostalgia and advertising. Drinkers and smokers are citizens. Other drug users are criminals. The distinction is moral theatre, not chemistry. If harm were a compass, the hierarchy would be reversed. Section 60 explained how this hypocrisy is maintained through media, conditioning, repetition and fear. The addict becomes the scapegoat for a system addicted to control. Every headline about killer skunk or zombie spice reaffirms the same myth. The danger lies in the substance, not in the structure. Meanwhile, the Friday night chaos is framed as tradition, letting off steam. Our tolerance of alcohol is not proof of maturity, but evidence of denial. We manage one drug's harm through culture and inflict another's harm through law. It is a confusion that keeps emergency wards full and organised crime rich. To move forward, we must shift from obedience to understanding. As Portugal's reform proved, education and compassion outperform punishment on every measurable outcome: use, death, cost. Knowledge breeds responsibility. Ignorance breeds crisis. The same logic applies at home. If the average citizen were given honest information about dosage, set and setting, hospital admissions would fall overnight. The evidence is no longer controversial. What remains is political fear. Reform threatens not the public, but the hierarchy built upon their guilt. So what can we do, here and now? Start where fear begins, at the kitchen table. If you are a parent, talk to your children as equals, not suspects. Tell them the truth you were denied, that pleasure is natural, risk is real, and both can be navigated with care. Explain how substances work, what they do, and how to use first aid. Show them that safety is born of knowledge, not silence. If you are a teacher, weave this honesty into education. Let chemistry and citizenship overlap. If you are a policymaker, read the evidence before the headlines. As Section 73 argued, education is cheaper than enforcement and infinitely more humane. If you are simply a citizen, watch your language. Words such as addict, clean, dirty and junkie do real damage. They are relics of a war we claim to have won. As Section 64 insisted, linguistic liberation precedes social change. To change the story, we must change the script. At the collective level, the path is equally clear. Legislation done properly is not chaos but coherence, a system based on real risk rather than moral panic. A post-capitalist model would replace corporations with cooperatives, profit with stewardship. Revenue would flow back into housing, education and mental health, not into shareholders' dividends. Section 72 outlined that framework. Transparent regulation, community distribution and harm reduction as social duty. The aim is not to make all drugs free, but to make freedom accountable. As Rawls and Bewley-Taylor both show, the world already possesses the expertise. What is missing is permission. This does not mean rejecting restraint. Tobacco remains the cautionary tale. A legal industry that proved legality without ethics is simply addiction to a suit. A rational framework would preserve limits, but limits grounded in evidence. We can be both joyful and responsible. A society that fears pleasure has already surrendered autonomy. Fun is not frivolity, it is maintenance of spirit. To dance, to sing, to share a pipe under the stars. These are gestures of life, not rebellion. The goal is not sobriety, but presence. The deeper message of this book, from Section 47's Science of Empathy to Section 74's Community Knowledge, is that care and freedom are not opposites. Anarchist medicine, as I argued throughout, rests on stewardship without domination, care without command. The same principles applies to social policy. When people participate in their own safety, they need fewer laws. When they are trusted with truth, they behave as though trust matters. We cannot enforce well-being, but we can cultivate it. The future of health, like the future of politics, is participatory. And what of the self? The addict's journey mirrors societies, from secrecy to speech, from control to connection. As I described in One Flew Into the Cuckoo's Nest, I believed at 40 that I was cured because the symptoms had gone. But healing arrived only when I stopped trying to manage myself like a patient and started listening like a participant. When the trauma was addressed, the same substances returned as allies rather than enemies. This is integration, not abstinence, but awareness. Society too can learn this, to replace prohibition with participation, hierarchy with rhythm. Both journeys end where they began, in the rediscovery of trust. So perhaps the pub test has it backwards. The real question is not whether legalisation is possible, but whether continued prohibition is sane. The evidence says no. The hospitals, prisons and morgues say no. The science, the economics and the ethics all align. The only thing left to defend prohibition is habit. And habit, as we have learned, is the definition of addiction. We can do better. We already are, in small circles and local experiments, in harm reduction tents and recovery farms, in families who choose honesty over shame. These are not anomalies, they are prototypes of the possible. If this book has argued anything, it is that freedom is rhythm, not rupture. Abstinence may be one beat in that rhythm, but not the whole song. The goal is balance within the body, within community, within the planet. We can have fun and be functional. We can feel deeply and still work well. The myth that pleasure and productivity are incompatible is capitalism's greatest fraud. In truth, creativity and connection thrive where fear subsides. To heal individually and collectively, we must learn to dance again, together, aware, alive, unashamed. We are not condemned to repeat the 20th century. We can leave its hangovers behind. The tools of reform already exist: education, compassion, evidence, rhythm. What remains is courage, to speak honestly, to trust freely, to live responsibly. The addict who learns to live with sensation without surrender demonstrates to the society that they can live with freedom and without fear. That is the invitation this book leaves you with: to grow up, to lighten up, and to start telling the truth. Because in the end, healing, personal or political, is nothing more than that. And let's face it, you'll be dead soon, so you may as well have some fun on the way. So the problem was never just drugs or chemicals. It was the way we built a system around control, fear and silence, and then called that safety, which means everything that follows from that idea, prohibition, stigma, punishment, is aimed at the wrong target. And if that's true, then it isn't just a misunderstanding, it's a system repeating itself while claiming to fix the problem. So if the structure is the issue, what happens when we stop obeying it? And if we've misunderstood addictions this deeply, what else have we built on with the same mistake? And that's where the book leaves you. Not with an answer, but with a shift. If you've made it this far, through every chapter, every section, every uncomfortable question, thank you, properly. Because this isn't an easy subject, and it isn't a comfortable one, but it matters. So wherever you go next with it, in your own life, your thinking, your conversations, good luck. And remember, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be honest. Okay, so that's it. We've finished. So you can get the whole book if you want, Drugs and Addiction, on by clicking the link there. Or just go back and listen to the video series if you don't want to buy the book. Or just email me and I'll send you a free PDF copy. I never do these things for profit. And just a little bit of news about the next book I've got coming out, which is Physics, Consciousness and Reality, and I've started a Facebook group reading that, and there's also the first few videos are on YouTube now, or you can buy the book soon, although that's coming out through Anarchist Press, and we'd very much appreciate some. There's a crowdfunding link, which you should be able to find, although I've stuck my stupid head over the top of it, which you should be able to find, which is there to help the authors keep all the profit rather than giving it away to the corporate bastards. Right, okay, thank you very much, and good luck with your journeys.